Window's obviously closed now. Talk to me about the window as a whole. How do you rate it and how do you assess the business that we've done?
Well, time will tell how well we've done, obviously, but for me the window started really at the end of the last window, January, because what happened in January was, we looked at certain players and sort of signed some players but failed to sign others, and one thing led to another. We ended up flying over to Belgium and trying to do a deal for Igor Thiago, which we obviously did. So for me, the first week of January ended up being also the first week of the summer. So that was a big part of our business, obviously anticipating that I would leave sometime in the summer. So that was the start of it, and then the window as a whole, in general, I think was a slightly strange one, because you had this kind of, it was quite quiet in general. I remember sitting there with Lee, Thomas, and sort of about 4 weeks ago, we hadn't signed any players up to that point, and are we going to sign any players? What are we doing? And it always felt like it would get a bit more lively towards the end, which is exactly what happened. And I think we signed like 4 first-team players towards the end of the window. So that was really good. And you had this strange kind of thing on the 30th of June where clubs were sort of selling players at that point, which we were kind of involved in a little bit as well on the buying side, but it never really happened. So yeah, it was a slightly unusual window from that perspective, but really happy with what we did.
How does like a major tournament like the Euros affect like what we do? Because was the lull in the start of the window down to that, do you think?
I think we always anticipated it would be slow at the start, partly for that. I think partly for the general financial environment that we're in at the minute. Not us particularly, but football in general. And also there's a lot of new managers came into the clubs, and I think wanted to assess what they had and do a pre-season and bring out new ideas and stuff. So yeah, there was a few clubs out there who were pretty active. I think Ipswich were pretty active in terms of what they were doing, for example. But it was an interesting window.
You mentioned Igor Thiago there. Obviously, he suffered that injury now, which is unfortunate for him. But how crucial was it that we got him in so early, so he almost had his mindset from? I know obviously played really well for Bruges from January until the end of the season, but he almost had in his head that he could come to Brentford, and despite the fact he's got this injury, he feels like he's settled in really well already. How crucial has that been?
I think it's always good to get players in early. I always try and do that where we can. Actually, this window, it didn't happen for different reasons, but having him in and being able to plan to get him into pre-season was a good thing. I had no doubt he'd settle because he's a fantastic character, and obviously, again, looking ahead to the Ivan situation, having that pre-boxed off, if you like, was an important thing. It's a bit unfortunate what's happened with the injury, but such is life. Yeah. Players come and take the place and do well, like Wiss has done today as number 9. So it's all good.
Another Brazilian obviously coming in, I'm sure, which will help both of them. Gustavo Nunes, he was incredibly highly rated and reportedly wanted by a number of clubs. How crucial is that deal for us to sort of get a deal like that across the line, with someone that's so highly rated like that?
I think it's crucial, not necessarily for today or tomorrow, but I think it's crucial in terms of the long-term health of the club. You need to invest in top young players, and we've been doing that, I think, for a long time now, and perhaps if I look back sort of 7 or 8 years, perhaps one of the, let's say, fewer clubs doing that, or other clubs did it less, let's say. But now I think everyone's doing it, right? There's a big demand on the young players, so being able to secure a young player, there's a lot of competition there, and also going into a part of the world that we've not, necessarily tapped into a lot in the past, which has its own challenges and complexities, as you can imagine. So I was really, really pleased that we managed to get that one done.
Sepp Berg and Fábio Carvalho also both coming in from Liverpool, which I again imagine helps them settle in as well, which is always a good thing. They both performed really well for Liverpool in pre-season, and I'm sure we would have had them on our radar for a long time. But I guess that was good, reinforced the good performances in pre-season, and we could take them from there. I guess the momentum almost that they could bring into our team then. Yeah,
they've been doing well, and Fábio had a great second half of the last year at Hull, and Sepp obviously in Germany as well. So they were coming in having played lots of minutes, which is always that's always helpful. You mentioned about partnerships. It's great. They both obviously come from Liverpool, know each other. But Fábio speaking Portuguese with Igor Thiago, and obviously Gustavo, it creates a little bit of a little group there. And they all, because Gustavo's English isn't great, and he's a young guy, so it helps him develop as well, or integrate a little bit better. So yeah, really pleased to get those two guys in. Liverpool were great with it as well, in terms of good conversations and a kind of a willingness all around to get deals done, which the easier it is, the better for me, frankly.
Jayden Meghoma obviously was the final one coming on deadline day. Again, such a highly rated and player with such potential, playing for a lot of the England youth team. So I guess another deal you're delighted to get across the line.
Yeah, we actually tried to get Jayden a couple of years ago when he was when he left Tottenham, and that's when he went to Southampton, and that would have been a B team signing at the time. But so it's a player that obviously we've known a long time, and in this summer, he was coming up to a year to go on his contract. We've been in that position with players as well, where if a player's not going to stay, then you look to capitalise. Again, relatively easy one to do in terms of Southampton. Rasmus Ankersen, obviously, I know very well. So again, a good process with those guys, in terms of bringing him in. So yes, he's another 18-year-old, loads of long-term potential. So hopefully, looking after the club long term.
As a young player like Jayden is, why is it that you opted to maybe make him a first-team signing rather than give him maybe a year in the B team first off?
Yeah, I think he's done that, right. I think he's been through that. It's not about the age necessarily in terms of B team or first team. It's more about the phase of development. Some players, Jisoo or Yarmo, coming into new countries and needing to adapt and integrate, perhaps learn the language, and a year in the B team was good for them. Gustavo, 18, but playing a lot of games for Gremio already in a good league, so perhaps didn't need that, and perhaps we could put him more with the first team to begin with. So it's case by case, really, not necessarily based on ages.
Mm-hmm. And as for departures, obviously Ivan left the club early this morning. Thomas has talked about how much of a sort of club legend Ivan is, but and you mentioned as well about how you expected him to leave in January, hence the signing of Igor, or expected him to leave this summer in January, hence the signing of Igor Thiago. Talk to me about that process and Ivan in general.
I think Thomas has probably said everything he needs to say about Ivan in terms of his performances and on the pitch, and I'll leave the on-pitch stuff to him to talk about. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think everyone expected at some point that there'd be interest in Ivan. I think potentially could have been more interest in him actually, as it happened. But there was a strong interest in him, obviously from Al-Ahli, and clearly a desire from us to get a deal done. So those conversations were smooth in the sense of, you want to buy him, we're open to selling him. So the process really comes down to let's see how we agree a valuation, and that process took time, obviously, and their window's open on Monday, so it didn't go quite down to the end, but obviously fairly late into the window. It's always a little bit tricky to manage when the season starts, and you have to think about who you're selecting in the team and stuff, but I think Thomas managed that well. So yeah, so really happy to get that done. Ivan's done a great job for us, moves on, is the next phase of his career. I'm sure he'll talk about that himself in the future. But yeah, a good end of the window, I think, from my point of view.
And another nice story, I think, Finn Stevens, who obviously we signed for the B team, and as a youngster he's come through, got into the first team as well, and we sold him onto the Bundesliga, where I guess he's pursuing other opportunities, which is a great opportunity for him, really. Yeah,
I love that. Love when players come from fairly far down the pyramid, step up and progress and make an impact. And obviously, it was looking difficult for him to get in our team, but to move on to the Bundesliga, it's just a great story, and especially in terms of involving our B team and developing players and being able to move them on. And it's important as well, I think, to be able to move players on, bring a little bit of income to the club, and show some progression there. I think similar example, Ryan Trevitt, right? I mean, coming non-league B team, and now is involved in the first team. It's a fantastic story. So those stories are like, everyone loves the big signing and the money and all the rest of it, but those are the ones I think that give you most pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. And two loans in particular, especially on deadline day, on Onyeka and Pat Harris, who went to Augsburg and Swansea. I guess it's a good opportunity for them to go and get more game time elsewhere.
Yeah, for different reasons. So Miles obviously is a player who's gone and done well at Forest Green, stepped up to Portsmouth, and he did that step up again. At his stage in his career, sort of being on the bench or the fringes for us, probably not what he needed. So obviously we'll see how he gets on. Frank, different case, was involved in a lot of minutes for us in terms of games. I think he was available for 30 games last year out of the 38, and was on the pitch in 26 of them. So a high percentage. So let him go a little bit of a risk in terms of taking a player out who had been getting minutes without an obvious outside replacement. But I'm very, very confident that with Yarmo and Trevitt and Paris obviously to get fit, I'm sure we've got the players who are going to step in and take those minutes. And it's important as well to allow them to develop. And for Frank, it was a key thing. He wanted to start more games. So ultimately, we all decided that was probably the right thing to do.
Yeah. Looking elsewhere in the club, obviously we've got the academy open now. 12 new players for first years into the under-18s. Yeah. A lot of new staff as well. How's that process been, and what's that look like?
Yeah, obviously all the 9s to 16s, all the player registrations we need to do there, and we got the Cat 2 licence. Well, I don't know when it was. It feels like ages ago, but a lot of work gone in there by the guys and girls in the academy. So, listen, we're at the start of a process there. We've obviously signed a few players into the B team as well, and Julian, and we've got Ben Krauhaus. Again, last January with a view to coming in the summer, and that's good to get him in the building finally. And I'm sure one or two Vontae and a few others I've probably forgotten. But listen, start of a long process with those guys, but hopefully we'll see some players progressing through there really soon.
Yeah, and whilst the window's closed now and we've got the international break, whilst some people might be getting a rest, I imagine you're still looking ahead to the next window and the window after that and the window after that?
Yeah, so the end of last January it was about, right, we can sign Igor Thiago next week. I promise you I'm not going anywhere next week to sign players. That's it, I'm done, finished. It's squad looks good, and I think the next phase of the next year or two for Brentford is about, we've invested in young players, it's now giving them the opportunity to step forward, actually develop into the team, with Jayden and with obviously Gustavo and I could name a few. Actually, it's quite a young squad now, Fábio. So sometimes it's not all about going out and buying a load more players in January or in next summer, but actually saying, right, what have we got and how do we develop these players and how do they develop and actually take us to the next level.